there. Thanks so much for tuning into our Frame of Mind series. I'm Chris Shewmake, and I lead our comm strategy and media team here at Cactus. To kick us off, I wanted to set up why we're here chatting today. Every May, Mental Health Awareness Month, Cactus leads a series of conversations around the importance of mental health. Mental health has always been a core factor of what we do here as an agency, and we're really excited to talk to a variety of brands this year about how they engage and embrace in that conversation around mental health. For me personally, exercise has always been a huge part of my mental fitness routine. Getting outside, doing something hard, suffering a little bit, that's always the best way for me to work through something tough. So I'm really excited to be chatting today with Ben Checketts, creative director and co-founder at Rhone, a brand that really embraces this intersection of mental health and physical fitness. Ben, it's really great to meet you. I got a few questions I'd love to ask.
Thanks for having me, Chris. And
Yeah.
let's get to it.
Awesome. Well, first of all, tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do at Rhone?
So I am one of the co-founders. My other co-founder is my older brother, Nate, who's the CEO, and I am the creative director. So that means a little bit of different, wherever you are at our company, the creative director kind of sets the creative direction for the season, including, larger marketing campaigns as well as influences the product direction.
Hmm.
So I kind of sit between product and marketing, influencing both teams, making sure that everything we're doing is just in line with each other, and making sure that, collectively we're kind of marching towards this balance of brand and product marketing, which is a really tricky mix, but we're getting better at it every single season.
That's awesome. I think that's a conundrum. That topic of the balance between brand and product is something that every marketer is certainly thinking a lot about. I want to come back to that because I might ask a
Yeah,
question about how a little bit of your ethos as a brand kind of feeds into both the brand level and product communications. I
yeah,
think
for
before
sure.
we do that, I'd love to dig a little bit into that, like into that ethos.
Hmm.
Understand. What is Rhone? What do you guys do as a company? But maybe even more importantly, like why do you do it? Why do you exist in the world today?
Yeah. So our North Star statement, the statement that is on everybody's desk and everybody knows, is that Rhone is performance-driven apparel made by and for those in the pursuit of progress. And so we got into the market about 11 years ago. It's 10 and
Mm,
a half years at this point. And we took a look around and we saw that there was a lot of white space, in particular in the way that there was kind of your big box brands, your Nikes, your Reeboks, Under Armours, etc., occupying quite a bit of the market. And then
mhm,
there started to pop out these like niche brands that were focused on specific end use or a specific customer. So Lululemon was the one that really jumped off the page to us. The way they had come in, had really established who their customer was, this high earning
mhm.
female for the most part who was into yoga or Pilates, studio kind of sports. And we said, yeah, they are making men's stuff, but they're not addressing men. They're not speaking to men in their marketing messages. And at that time, 85% of their men's products were purchased by women. So it was kind of an interesting white space where we said we could move in here, we could focus on speaking to men, but we really wouldn't be content with just being another athletic brand. These exist, they're perfected, in the Nikes, so to speak. What can we do differently? And what we looked at was everybody was messaging this really intense focus on physical performance,
Mm,
which is something that is very important. And like you, I love to work out. I love to, push myself on the physical side. But I also was very aware of my limits in terms of physical performance. I knew I wasn't going to play a professional sport, so I didn't really care what pro athletes were wearing.
mm,
And that mentality didn't really inspire me to get up every day because these were highly compensated individuals who were famous for doing what they do. I wanted to speak to, and keep in mind at this time we were focused on men. I wanted to speak to the guy that woke up early before his kids, got a workout in, got to work, came home, played with his kids, did what he had to do, and that was his life. And he was always looking for ways to improve in those areas as a father, as a husband, in his work, in his physical performance. And so how could we speak to him for the whole picture? Like
mm.
take his whole day and break it down. How could we speak to him and outfit him? And this idea came to me because I was, talking to all of my friends, and I noticed the people that I really like spending time with were the people that were goal setters. They
Mm.
were the ones who were just, yeah, this year I'm going to run a marathon, or this year I'm going to do a CrossFit competition, or whatever it was. I just loved being around those people because this idea of the pursuit of progress was so infectious. And so we really folded that into our brand and in our messaging that we are not just we're not an athletic brand for professional athletes. We're an athletic brand for the person that wants to make progress every single day in whatever they do. And a really important component of that is balancing this idea of focus on physical performance and a focus on mental health. And we don't talk about mental health in the way that, in a disease state. We don't talk about it as depression or anxiety. Even those are super real challenges. There are better resources than a clothing company if that's what you're going through. We talk about mental health as kind of what are the daily habits, the wins that you can stack up so that, hopefully you can build some resilience to those
Mm.
serious mental health challenges when they come. Just like brushing and flossing your teeth. You do it every single day. Hopefully you avoid the dentist, but you might find yourself in that chair at some point. That resilience that you built up over time will hopefully help you in that scenario.
Very cool. That makes a lot of sense, and I love hearing about your kind of definition of this striving for progress, not necessarily perfection. Because I do feel
Yeah.
in your category, what we often see is models,
Yep.
professional athletes, this sort of cultural definition of maybe what perfection might look like for some people, and
Yeah.
the idea of kind of keeping it more real and about personal progress feels differentiating from that category. You talked a little bit in that response about the kind of juxtaposition with the use of professional models and professional athletes, but it also looks like Rhone has embraced some of that as well when it comes to some partnerships that you guys have established working with leagues and athletes. Can you talk a little bit about how this platform has kind of grown and evolved over time?
Yes, absolutely. And it's a really good point. It makes me sound a little bit like a hypocrite, but let me explain. Because when we got approached by these leagues and these partnerships, most notably the NBA
Mm,
and the LPGA, we said, look, we don't want just a traditional partnership. We don't just want to be an official partner of the NBA. So we got two designations. We got the official dress shirt of the NBA, and
mm,
then we are now an official partner of NBA Fitness, which has a massive mental health component. And so the athlete that we went and got, for me, is the poster child of speaking about mental health as an athlete, which is Kevin Love.
mhm,
And what Kevin has done so admirably is exactly what I was just talking about. Authentically, he has come out and shared his experience. And you see these guys on the court and, they're so gifted and they're so physically capable that for him to share that he has had panic attacks during monumental moments in his career,
yeah.
like debilitating mental health. And the more I learned about it, the more I was actually impressed with him. I'll share just a little anecdote. So his dad played basketball. His dad actually just passed away this week, unfortunately. But his dad played basketball at the University of Oregon. He's like a legend at the University of Oregon. And so when it came time for Kevin to pick a college, many people thought he was just going to go to the University of Oregon by default. In
Mm,
fact, he went to UCLA, which was at the time a huge conference rival. But they were the better basketball program. They set him up for success. His dad came to peace with it very, very quickly. But they were receiving death threats. Every
mm,
time his family went to games, they were getting booed. They were getting blamed for this decision that he didn't choose the University of Oregon. So keep in mind, as an 18-year-old freshman playing at UCLA, this place that he had grown up going to and being loyal to and saw his dad really love and follow, and be praised by all these people, all of a sudden turned on him and it was his decision. And so the kind of effect that that would have on someone at that age,
mm,
you really can't underscore how negatively these people get treated sometimes. Yes, certainly they get praised and lauded and they get all these accolades, but man, sometimes they receive the ugliest human behavior that you'll ever
mm,
see. And so, we went into these leagues with eyes wide open and we said, we will be your partner, but we really want it to be a sharp focus on mental health, on progress, on these things outside of physical performance. So for the LPGA, we've participated in the Girls Golf Fund, which allows young female athletes to get lessons and get into the LPGA and develop their skills. And it gives people just another opportunity to kind of, leave maybe a situation where they're a little bit less fortunate and make it to a world in which they can do what they love every single day and get paid for it. So we've really taken, care to make sure that if we are partnering with these athletes, that they are completely bought in on
mm,
our mental fitness mission and we can find areas to work together and explore that aren't just physical performance, aren't just your typical official partner of the league. We want to, what we always say is we bring a little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of grit, but ultimately we're going to make sure that it resonates for our customer and our message.
It really sounds like through that process and from really what the brand was kind of built around to begin with, it took a deep understanding of a customer to build this for. I mean, very much what you're saying is more of a mindset driven kind of customer profile than
Hmm.
necessarily a demographic or necessarily,
Yeah.
activity based, which we see other kind of hard goods and soft goods playing in,
Yeah.
more activity based space. I'd love to hear a little bit about like how do you guys get to know your customer that way? How do you understand and really develop what that customer profile looks like? And then how do you stay in touch with them to help inform the
Yeah.
decisions that you make?
Great question. We've done it in a real variety of ways, but I would say the most important thing that we do on a day-to-day basis is, like you said, we don't look at demographics, we look at psychographics. So
Hmm.
instead of, what's their household income, we might take a look at what areas of the country do they live in, what professions do they work in, which can be rolled into a demographic, but then we try to expound from that. What are they reading? What kind of podcasts
Hmm.
are they listening to? What cars are they driving? And I'm kind of a cinephile, so I'm like, what movies do they love? What TV shows are they into? And that helps me get kind of my mindset into the customer's journey. And I would say we've done this well at different times, but we also really just wanted to speak to our customer like they were an adult. Like I mean, to be honest, I go on to Nike's website and I feel like I'm 12 again, the way that
Mm.
they speak to me. We wanted to meet our customer up here where they're at. We have a higher profile customer, a very well educated customer, a well read customer. And so the basis for a lot of our campaigns have been very deep literary references, poetry and historical fiction, things that really resonate with us. On the inside of all of our clothing, we put these quotes that we pull from great men and women who have lived throughout history. And so, we try and make our brand sophisticated, but not just because of the price point or the technology or the fabrics that we use. We try and make it sophisticated in the way that the entire package is wrapped up and presented to you.
That's awesome. I imagine that you also tend to get some interesting, like positive feedback to your brand just with this aspirational message, this kind of motivating message behind it.
Yeah.
Get out there, keep following that pursuit, not of perfection, but of progress. I imagine you get some good stories from customers here and there about the kind of role you've played in their lives. Anything like that you guys can share?
You really have to engage with people. So we found in-person events.
Yep.
We found giving our customers stuff, even if it's just content, just giving it to them as much as we can, as often as we can, and continuing to stay consistent with the quality of our clothing, the quality of our messaging, and everything else that we really hold dear. It keeps them coming back. And again, just that like personal touch with customers. And to me, that never gets old. Like people are like, I can't believe the founder's doing this. I'm like, I would rather spend most of my time doing this if I could get rid of some of the more administrative stuff. So, I personally love those engagements with customers. Nate and I go to all the new store openings. We really believe in that, and we've met some incredible people. We met a family in Miami the other day. We just opened our store in Coral Gables, and they had actually named their baby Rhone. And it was
Wow.
like one of those moments where you're like, and it wasn't completely because of our brand, but it was like partially because of our brand. I was like so honored. I
That's
was kind of
amazing. It's
kind of
like
taken back. So
like seeing the brand tattooed, hearing about a
yeah,
baby name,
exactly.
that goes up. That's high on the pedestal for sure.
Totally, totally. Yeah.
That's awesome. Um, I would love to hear a little bit about how Rhone embodies this kind of ethos, this North Star
Hmm.
internally. What does it mean for your people, for your employees, your executive team? Like, how do you guys live this kind of culture yourselves?
Great question. So we've actually instituted this program internally called the 12 Pursuits, and it was kind of a brainchild of Nate and myself, because we looked at New Year's goals and we were like, man, I just like they're just so discouraging. You lay out all these goals and then 3 months in, you ditch all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? I'm better at sprinting. Like literally, I'm I'm not a distance runner. I'm a sprinter. So not that I'm fast, but I enjoy sprinting more, I
Yeah.
should say. But I said, what if we took the 12-month calendar and we broke it down into 12 habits that you really wanted to get better at? And these should be foundational things: sleep, hydration, gratitude, meditation, breath work, getting outside time, movement, getting 10,000 steps a day. And each month you just focused on one of those things. And so we started it 3 years ago as an internal program. We have an expert speaker come in, speak to our whole company. we have kind of a facilitator of sorts who's on Slack like every day saying like, have you done your breath work today? Or how many hours of sleep did you get last night? I got 7. I feel like these things are starting to happen. And we found that, when you stack those small victories month over month, at the end of the year, you look back and you're like, man, I did make some serious strides in my
Mm.
health. And none of them are crazy. And some months, like the challenges really resonate with me and I'm into it. And some months I really struggle with the challenges. But there's just something about, you said suffering. There's something about suffering, but suffering together
Yeah,
in the best way that really helps people live this and show that we mean it. And so Nate and I are always the first ones to show up and be like, yeah, this challenge that we've issued, like we're going to do it. And, here's our experience with it. And when you get everybody to buy into that together and be communicating and sharing their experiences, there's really something special about it.
that's amazing. Can certainly feel how you guys embody that internally. I want to talk a little bit about how you bring that out to the world too, right? So we talked
Yeah.
about partnerships and programs that you guys have going on today. We talked earlier about just like that mix between brand and performance. That's the world that I live in all day long,
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
Um, I did a little audit of what looks, your content strategy, your go-to-market strategy, and certainly see looks like you guys are doing, big content pushes. You've got that kind of low funnel product oriented stuff. I would love to hear a little bit about how that North Star kind of spans and gets implemented across like all of your communications, right? How do you
Yeah.
communicate at a brand a little about that? But how does that even influence what you say in that super low funnel product market, ROAS optimized kind of
Yeah.
low funnel campaign efforts?
That's a good question. And I would say we are certainly not perfect at this. It's a constant kind of grind, getting a little bit better every day. So yeah, I would say the first bucket is content, right?
Mm,
And so we try and make content and we try and keep this nice balance and this nice flow of content that's there just to inspire and educate, and then content that's there to, maybe sell you a little bit on
mm,
something. And they have very different tonalities. So you can kind of tell if you've followed us for a while or you've been a customer for a while, you can kind of tell what you're getting yourself into at the beginning of the content. And we do that very much on purpose. There are certainly common threads, and anytime we talk about a product, we try and talk about a product, making your day just a little bit easier. I always say, like, the best workout clothing is the clothing that you just forget is there. So, it's the same with all of our products. If our products can just optimize your day, and if you almost forget that they're there, and that comes across not only in the fabrics that we choose or the features that we choose, but also the branding. We're
mm.
never very loud with branding, and again, that's on purpose. It's not meant for other people, it's meant for you. That's why the quotes are on the inside, because it's meant for you. It's not meant for the world. And so, we always talk about our products in the way of how is this solving a problem? Why did we actually take the time to make this the way that we did? And how and why do you need that? And of course, that's effective from a sales perspective. Like if you're solving a problem for a customer, they're going to understand the need, they're going to want to buy it. But it also speaks to this message of, we are here to help. We are here to serve you, and then remaining very open for feedback. We are relentless about soliciting feedback, and
Mm.
it's the good, the bad, the ugly. We want it all.
That's awesome. Well, in your role as a creative director, I think you're well equipped to answer this question. We talk a lot about at Cactus the kind of the role of creativity to help solve some of the world's biggest problems,
Yeah.
and certainly, mental health and the kind of epidemic around anxiety and loneliness and all those things that we hear about from a cultural perspective all the time feels like one of the world's biggest challenges. I'd love to just hear a little bit about what do you think the role of kind of creativity is in helping the world address some of these, societal issues that we're dealing with on a regular
Mm.
basis?
I think it's massive. I think, especially with the introduction of I was really
Mm,
shocked and frankly disappointed, and still am, with how people have said, like, this is great. We don't need copywriters. We don't need graphic designers. We don't need these classic creatives because we have this robot that can spit out exactly what we want. I think you'll see, there's always, if you're a student of history, you see these movements and then you see these counter movements, right? So there was like, the classical style of painting, and then there was neoclassical, and then there was modernism and anti-modernism, and it's interesting to see how that goes. I think people are leaning really heavy into AI, and then I think you will see a pushback against AI eventually of just, and sometimes it's good. Sometimes it creates a renaissance, so to speak, where people are all of a sudden saying, we've
Mhm.
been constrained by these things for so long. Now it's just like bursting open. So, I think creativity is hugely important. I think everybody needs some aspect of creativity in their life. And I think people think of creativity as being, you need to go paint or write poetry or anything like that. And so I think people need to find their own outlets for creativity. And to me, actually fitness at times has been that. I love exploring new areas of fitness. I went like deep into Olympic lifting for 2 years, and then I went deep into kettlebells, which I think are really fun and really interesting for a couple years. And I've had stints with like high rocks training and bodybuilding, all these different types of things because I just find it can be a creative expression with your body. And so, yeah, you just need to find kind of your own outlets. But I know that introducing creativity in my work has always yielded better results.
I love that from kind of a personal perspective. What role do you think brands need to play in terms of helping, folks with their kind of mental health and
Mm.
their mental fitness themselves? Obviously, you guys
Yeah.
are doing that, but what do you think is the onus on corporations and on brands to kind of help us with that pursuit?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer because I would say if it's not part of your core values, then I don't actually think you need to message on it.
Because you can tell when it's faked, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I'll give you a great example when it comes to sustainability, right? There's a lot of clothing brands, a lot of active clothing brands that message about sustainability. Our take on sustainability is if we make a garment that lasts you a long time and goes through all these workouts and goes through all these wash cycles without falling apart, that's actually one of the best things we can do from a sustainability perspective. But in terms of actually helping the earth, the best thing we could do is just to not make product,
Yeah.
right? And so we always message it from a very authentic standpoint of saying we are responsible for what we do. We try and offset it in the best way that we know, but that's not really our focus. Our focus is mental health. And so we speak to it from that point. We've had people ask us, why haven't you put out a statement about this news story or
Mhm.
this political event? It's like, that's not our platform. That's not what we talk about it. We always talk about it through the lens of mental health. If it's starting to affect someone's mental health, we have resources, we can be helpful there, but we're not going to make a statement on it.
That's fantastic. Well, Ben, thank you so much, man. This was such a great conversation. Really great to hear you guys talking about that core belief that's been true of the brand from the beginning, the
Yep.
evolution of that over time, the way that you've used that as a magnet to kind of pull in, a customer with based on a mindset, and just awesome to hear about, the direction that you guys continue to head in. So we really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Thank you.